Welcome to First Contact Stories of the Call Center. I'm your host, Christian Montez, where we dive into the lives that connect us all, one call at a time, revealing the stories behind the leaders' transformative journeys in the contact center world. All right. Hey, everyone, and welcome to First Contact Stories of the Call Center. I'm your host, Christian Montez, and every month we dive deep into the journeys of innovators, CX experts, contact center experts, entrepreneurs, and leaders. And so today we're super excited about bringing on Amanda Pietrocola to the show. Now, for those who don't know Amanda, you may actually know her business, Momentum Technology, where she is the CEO. Now, with that said, she has a really cool story, and we'd like to kind of dive into that. But with that said, Amanda, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
You know, we always have stories at the beginning where we talk about the origins of how we got into the industry. And we always have this joke that not everybody wakes up and then magically one day wants to work in the CX or in the call center space or to even be an entrepreneur or a leader. Now, your journey, I understand, is a little bit unique in how you got to where you are. So we'd love to kind of share that story. Tell us at the beginning, what did your career aspirations look like, youth getting into what you wanted to be, and then how did you end up where you are today?
Yeah. So my story is definitely not your typical one. But I began as a college intern working for a local tech startup, having zero idea what I wanted to do for my career. At the time, I was going to college for a business degree because I figured I could use that anywhere. And I just loved where I was interning. Great people, great products. I was learning a ton, and they decided to bring me on full time. And over the course of about 8 years, I grew in that company from customer support rep to team lead to director of customer success, and then eventually to product manager over their flagship app. And then through a series of events, I believe it was January 2018, I'd been there almost 8 years. And honestly, Christian, just was starting to wonder, like, have I settled? Have I gotten complacent in this role? Because I had grown, but saw friends moving to cool new cities and doing cool new things and thought maybe there's more for me out there. And it was just honestly a short time of prayer. I'm a person of faith and trust God to direct my next steps. And all I can say is that January 2018, I had this moment of not sure if I should be looking somewhere else for the next step of my career. And I just had this inner sense that the Lord spoke to my heart. And all I heard was the end of this year will look very different than it does right now. And I just knew that meant stay put, bloom where you're planted. And when I tell you 6 months later, out of nowhere, they approached me with an opportunity to become CEO of that product. And then very quickly, within like weeks of that conversation, it turned into potentially fully acquiring the product. And so I went on to not only fully acquire it, had about a team of 7, myself included, that went to Momentum Technology once I founded it. And it's just been a wild journey ever since. So entrepreneur through acquisition, not something I ever thought I would be doing, but super happy to be here.
You know, there's so many nuggets in that journey that, I'm sure you've told this story many times over your time. One, because it's unique, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that go, how did you get here? Right. Why did you get to this point? And what's interesting to me about it is you said, I was at this place for 8 years, and it's not common nowadays to have very many people that are at the same company for a while, especially when it seems like an early part of your career, because it was, you were interning. So it became your first kind of job.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
so at that point, was there some driver, like, what was it, loyalty, or was it the feeling of it was your first job? And then, you had a career path, like what kept you for 8 years? Because it seems abnormal for your first job.
Yeah. Well, and I think I would be bucketed into that millennial generation, which love-hate relationship with that. But you're right. I mean, typically our age group doesn't tend to stay in places long. A lot of people just keep trying to make that next job jump for higher salary, a better title. And for me, honestly, my bosses were really good to me. I felt like they actually cared. I saw opportunities of growth. They really did invest in me as far as giving me those opportunities. And Even though the company grew significantly while I was there, because I started on that ground level, I had more personal relationships with them. I saw their kids growing up, knew their spouses, and just was more of a part of their lives than I think most team members get to be. So there probably was definitely a sense of loyalty, but I also genuinely just loved the people I got to work with. And it was super fun being a part of their growth.
You know, when we talk about the concept of, feeling like you exist, you're not just an employee number or some employee that does this thing, that you feel as if you're part of this journey of the growth of the business, especially if you say there was a lot of growth. Talk to me about the moments in which you were going through that big growth. And did you learn anything during that journey that you now take on, or that you say, I'm never going to do that in your business? There had been over years, these learning opportunities, or was it all just, you figured it out after you decided you wanted to be a business owner?
Uh, Definitely a mix. So the funny thing is, I actually never wanted to be a business owner. My dad had his own tech company for about 40 years. And I saw how hard it was being just he was the product, so to speak, did a lot of training for people. And so I always saw that and thought, I never want to do that. And then I'm sure God laughed and said, well, just you wait. so, so I went from not wanting that to wanting it very much, and learning a ton along the way. I think anywhere you work, you learn both what works and what not to do. And I definitely learned some of the what not to do's, because they were also learning. So no judgment on them, but they were learning along the way too. So some of those things that I learned along the way were to really care about people, and to not make work their life, because we talk about this work-life balance, but most companies, it's more of a buzzword than a culture. And for us, we actually really work hard to make sure someone takes PTO, and when they're off, they're off. Versus, and true story, but at one point in my past career, I went on a cruise with family, and my bosses bought me Wi-Fi to make sure that I was checking in every day on the team. And I was young and figured, like, this is just part of the hustle and grind. And now I look back and realize, like, I don't want to do that to our team. I want them to know, we're paying them for 40 hours a week. We're investing in them, but when they're off and get to just enjoy their life.
That the work-life balance term gets thrown around a lot.
Yep.
And I have absolutely worked in companies that the outside says we love our employees, the time off is there, and it's generous for a reason. And then you have middle management or even division leaders that have a mindset that if you're not always working, you're not invested into the business. You don't care. And when you take time off, there's almost this like sense of shame, or this sense of, oh, you're taking time off. You're getting docked in my book as someone that doesn't care as much. And, one of the things that I tell my staff is, there is not an award at the end of the year for the most unused PTO, right? This isn't something we celebrate. So the mindset of thinking that this is something that you're somehow sacrificing for the business because it's helping everybody, if anything, you're just burning yourself out, and then you're not as useful during the hours that you should be working. So outside of that piece of it, where you felt you were cared for, you felt there was a relationship there that allowed to have some form of balance at some point, what not to do, what to do, you now got to a point where you're like, I'm offered a business. You didn't want to own a business. You didn't want to be an entrepreneur. What made you go, oh, okay, yeah, this sounds like a great idea. Let's go and do that. That sounds fun.
Yeah. I would say it really was kind of that flip of a switch for me, probably because of that prayer I prayed January of that year, and just knowing, I don't know how to explain it. It was just like, I know that I know that I know. It was the Lord's voice in my heart. And then this happened, and it was just abundantly clear that this was what he had, like, very slightly shown me just months prior. And it wasn't just a jump into it saying yes. Like, I believe in counting the cost and weighing like, okay, this will be my life, especially in the beginning, anytime you're starting up a business, and there was a lot to learn. And I think I learned 10 years worth in like two. So I think there was just a sense of knowing this was the right path for me, but it also wasn't immediate. There was definitely a lot of prayer, talking with my family and making sure they were on board, to support me. Because, like I said, I knew that there would be times I was missing family dinners or family vacations, possibly in those early stage years where I just had so much to learn. Um, and thankfully, they were on board, ready to support and cheer me on. And that made a world of difference during a lot of different times during the business.
You know, I can't imagine somebody in that moment just saying, I'm going to do this alone. I'm just going to figure it out. And there are people that can do that. But it sounds like you had this support group, both in your faith, but also in the people around you saying you can do it. But with that said, you don't have a background in tech. You don't have, you don't have some sort of like engineering degree. You didn't design products yourself. How did you go from saying yes and then now tangibly making something of this and saying, okay, how do I not ruin this thing? Because you know the product, it sounds like, because of your time at the business, but going forward, right? Innovating, building the business, understanding how to manage people that maybe are tech people. How did you go from where you were to saying, not only can I do this, but how did you gain the skill set and the leadership that was required to continue and grow a business like that?
Yeah. Wow. So that's probably one of the best questions I've been asked on a podcast. So I really appreciate that thoughtful question. Um, it was a mix of things. So my whole life, honestly, even from a young age, teenager, I was always put into leadership roles. So from a pretty young age, I was used to leading people to some degree. Obviously, leading in a business capacity is very different. But I've always loved learning about how to lead well, learning the ins and outs of business. For me, my spare time, I'd be on vacation reading a business book. So that's what I loved. I still love. It's just how my brain is wired. So even though I didn't have a technical background, I had been used to working with people across all departments as a product manager. So I kind of felt like being CEO was just a larger version of that, because I'd been used to working with marketing and design and development and being in sprint planning with scrum masters and the engineers. And so I really had, I would say, maybe 70 to 75% of the implementation side of it good, or at least, I had enough knowledge to feel pretty confident in my skill set. Um, and then it was things like, dealing with taxes and more of the business entity structure that I didn't have to deal with as a product manager. The other thing too is that over those years, I had started to get into investment real estate, and had flipped a home. That was one of the projects that I did. And I have learned about myself, I'm not someone necessarily who is gifted in the area of just like thinking of an idea and building it, but I'm really good at coming into the bones of something and then making it way better. So I had that with real estate. I had that in product, and I think all of that combined, I knew I had the skill set and the desire to do that here.
I love how every time you talk about some of these things, it wasn't like this. And I'm sure there were those moments of doubt or feeling like an imposter in the idea of like, hey, am I really doing this? Am I able to do this? Am I even allowed to have a seat at the table of where I'm at? There's people that have that journey where you're now in a room full of people that maybe been there for 20, 30 years. They're seasoned veterans. They're high powered executives. They're, technical gurus. And then you just speak with confidence. You have this part of you that just goes, and I don't know if it's part of your faith, your support group, if it's part of just your personality, but there's this like consistency of just saying like, okay, well, what's next? What do we do next? Walk me through the journey of your side though, of when you have found yourself in this position. Have you always had that confidence? Have you ever felt like, hey, am I supposed to be here? How did you gain or keep that confidence? Because it sounds natural, but I have to imagine through those 8 years and then pivoting into an entrepreneur, there had to been those moments where you were just like, wow, like, am I really here? Am I supposed to be here? How do I get through this?
Yeah. So, um, I would be lying if I said that I've never dealt with imposter syndrome. I dealt with that even as a product manager. I mean, being a female in technology, typically I was one of the few, if not only female in the room, surrounded by, super like technology driven people, engineers, people who thought significantly differently than I did and needing to relate with them. So definitely moving into like the entrepreneurial journey, becoming CEO, having a room full of people look to me for the answer. You definitely deal with imposter syndrome and that question of, oh my gosh, am I the one everyone's asking this question of and expected to have the answer? So I would say there have been many times that have tested that, but I think walking through 2020, I think most entrepreneurs, if not all, would say going through that, man, that shook me pretty hard. It was a tougher year in business for us, for everyone. This term "unprecedented times" that everyone started throwing around. I was 27, I think, 28 years old at the time, relatively new CEO, walking a business and people through a worldwide pandemic, and definitely had moments where I wanted to throw in the towel, moments where I thought I couldn't do it, moments I thought I wasn't qualified. And what I had to keep going back to was this very solid trust and belief that this journey had been God ordained and that He wouldn't have put me in this position if I wasn't the person for it. And that doesn't at all mean I do it perfectly. I am always learning, always trying to grow, always recognizing that there's more and better, but really just doing my best to steward what he's given me and stewarding the people well. And so I think a large part of what drives me, even in those moments, is this understanding that I have a great team of people and that I've been given the privilege to steward them. I don't say they work for me, they work with me. And we're a team. We figure it out together. And I trust them. And there are times I definitely need their input and their expertise. I always say hire for your weaknesses. And we've got some really great people that I can pull on, which has certainly helped.
Well, I love the fact that there's this idea, right? Whether people that are faithful in faith and driving their decisions or not, is this idea that you believe it can be done and you believe that you can be part of doing something great. And a lot of times we are the biggest limitation of our ability to succeed because then we make the decision to believe that we can't or that it's impossible. And so having that driver plus surrounding yourself, I think, with people that improve you, they're not just people that are subservient to you, I think makes a big difference. And so for those that don't know what the business is, can you kind of share about the products that Momentum Technology has in the market? What do they do? And, what are the drivers of what it is that you're innovating for your customers?
Yeah. Yeah. So, what I'm most excited about and would love to share about is actually our brand new product coming out, called Telecom Trust Center. This product actually was born out of a need that we had, which was deeper phone number intelligence. And we looked high and low and couldn't find it anywhere. A lot of companies will give you like caller name data and like little bits and pieces of what's connected to the number, but they have no way of actually giving you like real time information on those numbers. So, as I'm sure you've heard from probably a lot of your guests that you've had, necessity is the mother of invention. And so for us, that's what happened. Over the last year, we actually built what is now a patent pending product, that's a one stop shop API. So in layman's terms, I'll break that down a little bit, but basically businesses can transmit a phone number to our service, and in real time, we will return numerous data points, categories connected to that number, keywords connected, and then part of that secret sauce, I'll call it, is a trust score that we attach to that information that's being returned to the client, so that they have actionable insights and know how much those data points can be trusted. We have even more data that we give to like our business and enterprise clients, but price points, it's, I mean, dollars a month up to enterprise level. So anyone who's needing that for verification, fraud prevention, trying to dig deeper into like user demographics, all of that can be done through Telecom Trust Center. And that's something that, like I said, we built out of just a necessity to understand who are our customers. Like, we live in a world where everyone signs up with a phone number, but there's not a ton of information that's easily accessible. So for us, being able to understand like the user demographics, and is it a business or an individual that's signing up? What keywords are attached to it? So if we know, wow, we've got a lot of people that are signing up who are in sales, or who maybe are like mystery shoppers, or doing quality assurance, like we can then customize our marketing to the demographic that we see predominantly benefits from our services. So that's what we're super focused on now. We've been in a private beta for the last year, and have processed millions of numbers already through our service. But we will be going officially public probably within the next couple of weeks of this podcast going live.
That's great. And obviously, privacy, data, knowing your customer, being able to protect the customer and then know the customer. There's just so much there that's going on in our industry. And so it's great to see how people are innovating with, how do we know our customer better? How do we validate information? How do we make things more efficient? And doing so in a way that we can still protect the business and protect the consumer. Since that's not released just yet, are there any other products that are in the suite that are currently available?
So there's actually so the product that I acquired, and your listeners might for a moment be like, wait, what? So the product that I acquired was called Spoof Card. And I know that word has become like a 4-letter word in the industry. So hear me out first before before jumping to conclusions. But so that product started in 2005, 2006, just as a way to get people to answer a call. The person who created it, he was a locksmith, and people would use his services and then ghost him. And he thought, man, if I could call like as their mom, they'd answer, and then I could figure out why they still haven't paid me yet. And like I said, this was 2005, 20 years ago, before all the regulations and things had come into play. So when I acquired it, obviously there was a lot of like regulations and telecom changes. So we've added a ton of verification to our service. And now we make it really easy for people to verify a number that they need to display on their caller ID, which came in handy, especially in 2020. So many people working from home, not wanting to give out a personal number, but having no access to an office line. So they turned to our product, and they were able to continue business without skipping a beat, but also protecting their personal privacy. The clients knew who was calling because they were seeing the office line. And within that product, you can get a secondary number to text from if you need. You can record the call if you need it for, like we have mystery shoppers and quality assurance individuals who will use our service to showcase, what's going on to a business. So let's say, and I will neither confirm nor deny if they're a customer, but let's say Walmart wants to test their customer service reps. They might hire a company that then utilizes Spoof Card to call into a Walmart customer service center, and they will record the call and then share that back to Walmart and say like, hey, these are the areas that your reps need more training, or here's an issue that they weren't able to resolve. So it's been really cool to see how it's evolved over the years. And we've worked with law enforcement, Secret Service, celebrities, down to, maybe your stay-at-home mom that's selling something on Facebook Marketplace, but just doesn't want to give out a personal number. So having a service like that, we've seen the pros and cons. And that's why I think we're really in a great space with our experience to build a service like Telecom Trust Center, to further protect not only our own service, but give other companies a lot more insight.
Running a contact center these days takes a great deal of courage and fortitude. Nobel Biz would like to salute the contact center community for not giving up and working hard to drive their businesses down the road to success. As the promise keepers of the industry, Our goal was to provide one of the most versatile and cost-efficient omni-channel solutions on the market. Nobel Biz Omni Plus is a cloud contact center software that gives instant access to a full range selection of channels, from voice calls, two-way SMS, email, WhatsApp, Twitter, Telegram, among others. Our solution offers complete control over the externalities by switching from an on-premise technology to a cloud-based solution in just a matter of hours. Get integrated compliance support, advanced reporting, seamless agent and supervisor dashboards, and many more performance-enhancing capabilities, all in just one product. Nobel Biz Omni Plus, the future-proof solution for scaling contact center operations. Learn more about Nobel Biz Omni Plus at www.nobelbiz.com.
It's interesting when you said spoof, right? And spoof, for the longest time now has been used as a negative, right? That you're trying to illegally do something. But what people don't know, or especially in our audience that knows the contact center, telecom, and customer experience space, you know, it's very common for many systems to spoof numbers, right? You have a corporate phone number that you call into and you call from your individual line, right? It's not like the old days where you had a phone number literally tied to a physical wire and that was your phone number for your house line, right? Like you couldn't just go and change that number. That was your number. And so the concept of spoofing has tons of business applications. You need to now give your direct line versus the number you dial. You have a corporate office, but you need a call looking like you're calling from one of your branch offices or whatever. So you can see not only for the application you're talking about, where you have people that have personal phone numbers and they don't want to have 10 phones, 3 phones. They want to have one physical phone, but to be able to have different use cases for phone numbers. So it totally makes sense. And so as you've pivoted, right, into this world of technology and building new products, one of the big topics, the big things that everyone's been talking about is the disruptors AI, right? Some of it is to help people. Some of it's to replace people. Where do you see your journey in both where AI is fitting into your business and where you see it going in the industry, the good, the bad, the ugly? What's your feedback, thoughts on the topic? Lots to unpack there.
Yeah, hopefully I remember all those questions. But yeah, where I would start with that is, there is a lot to unpack. What I would say is that personally, I am a big believer, and you kind of touched on this already, that AI should support, not replace team members. And I think that's where people are really concerned. And I understand that. I mean, you see companies that are starting layoffs because AI can replace those people. And I think that's the difference between a company that's people first versus profit first. So I do think we will see that, unfortunately. For our use case, AI is definitely a part of our patent pending algorithm that Telecom Trust Center uses. But then on the support side, obviously we have a customer support team. And in its rightful place, I think AI can help solve a customer's problem faster, especially off hours when maybe you don't have a support team online, while also saving more of those complex issues for that human touch. But the other thing too is, I mean, if we think about it, 2 decades ago, people were extremely scared about buying things online. They were all worried that their credit card information was going to get stolen or compromised. But meanwhile now, I mean, we buy on Amazon, we Uber things, we Instacart, DoorDash. No one thinks twice about using a credit card. So I think it's just really important for people to remember, like, we control AI. Like, AI should be working for us. We shouldn't be scared of the technology, but we also really need to steward it well. And I think it can be a great tool and make teams more efficient, more productive. But I just think companies need to really be mindful that they're not trying to replace people with it, and also that they're not outsourcing their thinking and creativity to it, because it's great for process. But if we outsource our creativity and that empathy that just we're built with as humans, I think that's where it can get dangerous, but but also really cause companies to not stand out because they're AI only instead of having that human element. Hopefully I answered all of those things, but if not, like,
No, you did, because it's really a catch-all topic of, where do you sit on it? And obviously in our space and within your product suite, there's always this debate between, you know, whether or not you're going to replace humans or not. And I think it's inevitable that humans doing certain roles will get replaced, just like every other invention that has gone into effect where, you know, um, you had a lot of people that worked in retail at a music store, at a video and movie, purchasing movies. Well, now those are all digital. So those jobs have transformed into potentially other jobs that were created and others don't exist anymore. So I think it's going to have to be a balance between what can we do that will create jobs and create upskilling of people where they can focus their time, because you used the word earlier, empathy. And I think we throw that word a lot around the concept of, I'm literally feeling what you're feeling. You're crying, I'm crying. You're happy, I'm happy. I'm feeling exactly what you're feeling. So now I'm magically going to help you because I feel sad too, right? It's taking the emotion of understanding what someone's going through and then translating that into action. What are we doing about it? And that could be human beings understanding and helping in more complex ways that AI can't. But it also means that technology and AI can help that person in real time or even post of how do you become a more superhuman? How do you focus on the things that can empower the human's capacity to make and improve versus just doing those repetitive things? And I think you're spot on that if our focus is only just money, then sure, fine. It's all going to be about deflection. Send everybody to the IVR. Never get to a person. Send everybody to an email, never get to a person. And so I think you have the right mindset. You got to look at it holistically. And what's the end result? Is it just saving money, or am I helping my customers be more successful? Am I helping them have a less friction oriented engagement? And so with that, you said something earlier that really piqued my thoughts is you said around, we were so worried about making a purchase online. And now we do all these things online and it just leads right into privacy, giving data away, being able to just be totally okay with giving everybody anything. Where do you sit around balancing efficiency, giving people great experiences, but also protecting personal privacy, and where people actually are giving up their data and don't even realize it, or giving up their rights to data without even realizing?
yeah. Okay. So I'm going to take you back just a little bit, but I used to be a hardcore Android user. I have now moved to the Apple camp. But I remember when I was an Android user, I downloaded an app, like a flashlight app, and it would ask me for all these permissions that made no sense: calls, SMS, read, write. And it was just like, who do you think you are asking for all these permissions? So I've taken like the feelings that I've felt as a consumer, as a customer, and I've really tried to implement that to our products, where if we're asking you for a permission, it's because we actually need it for the functionality. We don't ask for more than we need. And then there's obviously all of the, encryptions and protections in place to ensure that that data is not leaving our servers. It's not being sold anywhere. And it pains me to see how many people don't think twice about giving out personal privacy, or giving out personal data and impacting their personal privacy. They'll use anything that's free because financially it makes sense, but they forget that if it's free, that company is likely selling your data to be profitable. So yeah, for us, we charge for our products, but that also means that we can protect your data. We can protect your privacy because we don't need to sell it to be profitable.
I don't think there's a product that we consume nowadays online, especially, where we click to accept something and there's always like a link. And almost none of us click on the link to go down and read the 30 pages of everything we've just allowed them to do. And the funny thing about it, not funny, haha, but just that idea is that we're so quick to that instantaneous gratification if we just want the free product, we want the product now. But then we get so upset when all of a sudden we get inundated with phone calls and mail to our house and emails and all these communications. And we're just like, I hate this. And you go, but you didn't realize that you literally gave everybody permission to do that the moment you clicked on this thing, right? And so being able to find that balance at the consumer side of how, as a product and as a business, do you balance providing a great experience, monetizing? Because I doubt very many people have a business to lose money, right? You still have to find a way to pay yourself and everyone that works for you. And still at the same time, be clear with your customer. What are you doing with their data or not? How are you engaging with their services and the information they give you? And so with all of that, as you come into this product that you're going to be bringing to market, I know some of those things are about privacy and data and being able to make sure that you can reduce fraud and being able to understand that. But how does that evolve going forward? What does the future look like? Is that like the next big thing for you? Or where do you see 5-10 years from now? Where do you see the business going and what are you doing?
Yeah. Wow. So honestly, I was not prepared for that question because we haven't even fully launched yet. So thinking 10 years down the road is tough. But what I can say is once we are officially, launched to the public, the short-term goal is to be a very common integration into your typical call center softwares, so that representatives can easily look up numbers, understand who's calling in or who they're calling, to make sure it matches their expectations, that the person who answers, or the name that they're saying, all of that is accurate. As far as like the 5-10 year model, honestly, this is going to, I don't know if you've heard the term BHAG before, big, hairy, audacious goal. But I would say our goal is really to partner with carriers and have this be embedded in that software, because even carriers, I feel like they have limited information. They've partnered with, First Orion and Haya and different things to know, is it likely to be a scam? We have Stir Shaken to see, is it attested to, and are these phone numbers legitimate? But as far as the actual deeper dive where I get a phone call, I don't want to have Apple tell me, oh, it might be so-and-so. Or I don't want to see scam likely, but actually it's my child's school calling me to tell me that my kid is sick and I need to come pick them up. I want to know who's calling me and have that actionable data. So, so big audacious goal for us, I think, is to actually have those partnerships where this technology is embedded in carriers, thus giving consumers significantly more real-time data for who's reaching out to them. And ultimately helping carriers to determine if someone is a bad actor or abusing their service.
The longest time carriers were just conduits. They were dumb pipes. They were supposed to deliver the call. That was the goal. And now there's the balance between protecting the consumer and what do you actually know about your customer and what are you doing about it when it's not good behavior. And at the same time, being able to understand even all the way to, am I allowed to call this person or not because they're on the DNC, and do I have the right level of consent? As a carrier or a technology platform, knowing that level of information was not normal 10, 20 years ago, right? Being able to understand those concepts. So being able to bring tool sets to providers that now need to not only protect consumers, but protect themselves, because there are a lot of things that can go bad for a provider when you turn a blind eye, or the excuse of not knowing isn't okay. I just didn't know there was bad actors doing stuff in my business. And so it's really cool to see that as you have these big audacious goals, that they're still so far aligning with the fact that there is a gap and there is enforcement mechanisms around how providers are supposed to know what's going on in their networks. So I kind of want to shift a little bit to something you said earlier around the pandemic. Almost everybody went remote. We've talked for the longest time about the concepts of remote work and hybrid work and what works better or not. From your seat in your business and the customers you work for, what does that balance look like? What has worked? What hasn't worked? Are there any learning lessons in the concepts of going remote or even having a hybrid environment?
Yeah, so we were super fortunate to already have a hybrid model before 2020 happened. So for us, the shift really just became remote work for a period of time. And thankfully, it really went super smoothly for us because we already had that. So people were used to accessing information through a VPN, secure portals for different things. Um, we had practices in place and continue to where we're, regularly auditing permissions and different things like that to ensure the privacy and protection of our clients, but also, obviously our team needs access to certain things even when they're remote. So at this point, we're actually pretty much a fully remote team. I'm based in Nashville, but we've got team members in different states, and so yeah, for us, it's just it thankfully was not that big of a shift for us, and it's worked really well. Um, I think one of the things that we did do during 2020 just to make it still feel like a team and something fun is every other Friday we would do what we called happy half hour. So the last half hour of the Friday, we'd all hop onto a call, grab your favorite beverage of choice and just chat and reconnect because I think, especially during 2020, that was the part that people really missed was that human connection, seeing people's faces and expressions and tone of voice. And so we did our best to still make people feel connected, even though we were remote. And so that's kind of just continued now that we're pretty much mostly remote.
So how did you drive and maintain culture in that world? Because one of the challenges of environments that were all in person, and you say the luck is that you kind of already had that kind of environment, but what did you have to do, or what do you have to do to get people to stay engaged, to be able to know if they're really driving the mission of the business, the core principles of the business, they're actually embracing the culture and they're not behind the scenes undermining the culture and creating pockets of cancer?
Yeah. Oh, such a good question. So there's a few things that we have. And like I said, we really do our best to not just say it, but we also live it. So one of those things is our core values, which I say I always test the team to see if they remember them. So we'll see if I can regurgitate them all. But it's that we are honest, we're humble, we're people of integrity, people of innovation, we're generous, we are people of excellence, and we are encouragers. So those are like our 6 core values. And typically every 6 weeks, oddly enough, those core values will be brought back up during a company-wide meeting. What we do is basically every 2 weeks, leadership will present to the team. We have our technology one, which is still everyone, operations, and then I'll also present from more of that business level. And it varies what we talk about, but we want to make sure everyone is on the same page. They know what's coming up. It's where we'll talk through our roadmap or our vision. It's where I, as a business owner, will think through like, what do I wish that my bosses had taught me or told me about business that would have made me a better team member? And then imparting that knowledge to our team. So there's a really big push to keep everyone on the same page. And then just from a tech standpoint, every day we're doing daily stand-ups. My VP of technology's got office hours where at any point people can schedule if they need to chat with him. We really work hard to be very easily accessible to the team. And so even though we're remote, there's constant communications and jumping on meets to talk through problems and brainstorming. And so there's that piece. But then as far as what you said, as far as like behind closed doors, so years ago, part of this core value rollout was also saying to people, if there is ever found to be someone who is causing division, who is gossiping, um, who is causing division among the team, we have zero tolerance for that. Like they will be fired on the spot. And someone was actually, after being found to have been incredibly divisive, spreading lies about team members. And it was pretty ugly for a time, not going to lie. Like once we found that out, it was some damage control. But we had made it very clear that was the boundary and it was very obvious it had been broken. So we have a very strong commitment to that because I mean, I always say that will bankrupt a company faster than any business decision will, to have someone who's just a cancer causing division between teams and gossiping. And it's also a waste of company time. Like, we could be building something great, and instead people are just getting caught up in drama. So, um, yeah, I think after that situation, people realized that I was serious about it. And um, everyone's got a rough day. Every so often, I'm sure someone's going to be annoyed at something, but I think we've got a team that understands it's much more important to be focused on the goal than the drama.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, misery loves company. And unfortunately, it's hard when you're having things happen at work or personal life that's tough to deal with, to not sometimes slip into the negativity, but it's what we do to get ourselves out of that and not let it truly continue to impact, is I think that mindset piece and the culture of, what are you celebrating, and then what are the things you're allowing to happen. And then that, hopefully, when you see people that are genuinely not living up to the mission, and when they go right away and there's zero tolerance, then it's a message to everybody else in the room to say, hey, you can make mistakes. You can make mistakes towards excellence, but when you're making mistakes because you are doing something that is the antithesis of our business, you have no place here, and you need to go immediately. And you also said one of those core principles was generosity. Talk to me and our audience about momentum impact. How did that come about? What is it? Why is it still here? Did people just write and say, I don't want to do that? Or like, okay, cool. Or is that a passion play?
Yeah, so Momentum Impact was born back in 2021. It's our philanthropic branch of the company that is committed to giving locally, nationally, and globally to a variety of causes. What that stemmed out of for me is, um, I very much so believe in the law of sowing and reaping, right? So if you want to reap generously, you have to sow generously. And no one plants an apple seed and expects corn, right? Like, whatever we're giving out, we very much so expect to receive the same back. And it's always in multiplication. Plant one corn kernel and you get a bunch of corn. So when it came to figuring out, like, how do we implement some level of like legacy and mission being connected to momentum technology beyond just the customers that we serve or the products that we build, it made total sense for me to create a 501c3. And the awesome thing is that for our team, they know that every hour they spend, every dollar we make, a part of that is going right back out and making the world better. So to date, I don't have the exact number in front of me, but I think we've given over $300,000 away to charities. A lot of it's been focused on caring for children, social causes that involve children. So some of that has looked like partnering with organizations that do rescue missions to rescue children from sex trafficking and offer them rehabilitation and therapies to help them heal from the trauma they've been through and be able to move on from it and grow from a horrible situation and turn it for something good. And one of the organizations we've worked with, one of the girls they rescued, she was 8 years old when she was rescued from that. And she was so impacted by the organization that she actually now works for them as a, 20-something young woman. And so that's definitely a big passion point of mine, where it's like, I love building businesses. I love building people. But if we're not impacting people for eternity, like, what's the point? All of this will fade someday. Businesses will fade, products will fade, the world changes, but impacting lives is super important to me. So that's how Momentum Impact began.
It's it's fantastic that there's this passion play, this part of giving back and helping. Was there ever a moment with staff that was already there that alignment of that driver of the passion and the mission was like, I don't believe in those things, or that's not my approach of what I would donate to? And when you go to hire people and grow, do you look for anything in particular in people when you look for them, if they're a good fit culturally and maybe even for your passion play, maybe people even just want to apply because of the passion play. Where is it not only a benefit, but did it ever have anything that was rough around the edges or was something you had to work through? Or was it always something as positive as it feels, which it just seems like it's such a great idea?
Yeah. So I'm an honest person, so I'll answer this honestly, but I'll add a little bit of context. There was one particular situation that I remember one or two team members having slightly negative feelings towards what we gave to. But unfortunately, the one team member that was part of that was the one we fired for causing division and all this. So yes, but I think it was more largely due to the individual that it was. As a whole, I think people have found a real sense of purpose, especially now that our focus has been a lot more on like sex trafficking rescue and rehabilitation. I don't know anyone who could feel against that. But what has been super, super cool is that by us being generous, I actually had a team member a couple of years back. She was in her review and, we told her what her raise was going to be. And her response, it could make me cry. It was so beautiful. She responded back, thank you so much for, seeing my value and wanting to give me this raise, but can I give this raise to a nonprofit I care about instead? And she, instead of keeping the raise for herself, wanted to give it to something that she believed in. And it was just like, man, like that's the impact that I want to make where people see us being generous and then they themselves are then championing that in their own lives.
Wow, that's a very impactful moment, especially not only talking about the emotion of it, but someone sitting there saying that, it's a real sacrifice for them if they want to, they're obviously living without that money, that moment, but they've worked for that raise. They've found probably the next part of their life they can use that money for, whatever it may be, and found another purpose for it. And so, as we kind of shift through the journey we've talked about today, are there any moments of either crisis or even something that was serendipitous that just really crystallized the way you lead, the way you manage and you bring apart as the head of a business? Any lessons that have just kept with you and that you carry forward?
Yeah, so I touched on this a little bit earlier when we were talking about 2020, and there have definitely been, any entrepreneur knows business has its highs and lows. It's like the ebbs and flows of just the way it works. So for me, through those low moments and those uncertain times, like I said before, and I don't mean to sound cliche when I keep bringing it up, but for me, my faith in the Lord Jesus Christ is by far at the core of who I am. It is what guides my decisions. It's who I turn to and lean on when I don't know what to do. And what I have consistently found is in moments where I thought, I don't know if we're going to make it. I don't know where the money's going to come from for something. I have always seen God be faithful and come through, sometimes in the midnight hour, way longer than I would like it to be. But I have found when I stop relying on myself and finally surrender that and go, okay, you know what, God, like you gave me this business and therefore like I'm here to act and steward, but it's your responsibility because it belongs to you. I have seen him come through in ways that have solidified my faith unlike anything else. And that has by far, I think, been the best part of this journey where I just have seen him come through where I know I'm not in this alone. And even when that boat gets rocked or, you're hearing about tariffs and world wars and all these things, instead of being shaken, I can be at peace because I know who I can go to for those answers.
It's interesting for those moments that we're so worried, we're so focused on trying to solve a problem, we're so embedded in being myopic and just putting the blinders on and focusing on one thing and not stepping back and just allowing answers to come to us. You sometimes have that thing where like you're looking for that pencil, and all of a sudden you find out the pencil's been in your ear the whole time. And there's always those moments of where sometimes, I've said this to my team many times, you have to slow down to go faster. I always use the analogy of a race car. the car can go as fast as it can go, but it's not always going to go the fastest possible, because at one point it may hit a wall, it may go over a cliff, right? There's these moments so that it has to slow down to make that turn, to make that stop, to do whatever it does. So then it can get to its end goal at the fastest, most efficient way. And so it's really cool to be able to see how different people have their approaches on what guides them to be able to have their moments of being able to see, hear, and feel what is being given to them, what's around them, what they can come up with, and what solutions they can do. So I know that you said reading a book and business books is something you even do in your off time, but when you're not working though, when you're trying to disconnect, and I know you have this rule about, no phones when you're on vacation and everything, what are you doing though to actually disconnect? What do you do when you're not just immersed in the business and always learning?
Yeah. So I'm a big family girl. I love my family. I love spending time with them. It's by far just super refreshing. I'm thankful to have a really wonderful family unit. So they're also have very much so been my safe place, my support. And so when I'm not working, I'm definitely, looking to spend time with them. Church, obviously involved there. And then as far as reading, Book of Proverbs, if you're familiar, but that one book in the Bible has so much wisdom. And I think for me, when I'm not reading a business book, typically I'm reading Proverbs, and that's helped me so much in leadership. When we went through that situation I shared where we unfortunately had to release someone for their behavior, I was reading Proverbs trying to get some answers and got them right there. So, I try to be a fairly well-rounded person where spending time with family, friends, living life, just enjoying this beautiful earth that we've got. The beach is my favorite spot, but kind of hard to get there from Nashville. So,
Well, Nashville has, if you like music, especially country music, you like, a lot of the scenes, a lot of beautiful areas, and even some neat architecture in the area from replicas of other parts of the world, if you've ever been around the area. Some really cool stuff. But with that said, yes, I can't say no to the beach. I think a picture painting in the background looks like a beautiful beach scene. So look, there's going to be people that want to connect with you, or they want to connect with your business. How best can they do that, Amanda?
yeah, so I'm pretty vocal on LinkedIn, talk a lot about business, entrepreneurship, leadership. So if they just look up my name, Amanda Pietrocola, hard to spell, but I'm sure you guys will have it in your notes there. Very easy to connect with me there. I try to be as accessible as I can for questions. And then telecomtrustcenter.com is where they can learn about our new product and become part of our wait list for when we launch.
Well, thanks so much for coming on to the show. Loved having you on, and we could talk forever, but I want to be respectful of time. So thanks so much for joining.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us or having me. I don't know, I said us. Having me. It was such a great conversation.
Awesome. Well, that wraps up another episode of First Contact Stories of the Call Center. Thanks so much for Amanda joining. If you want to connect with her, you get the way to get a hold of her, and we will have the episode available for all of you to be able to get. So thanks so much for joining. Have a great day. Thank you for joining me in this episode. If you're loving the content, make sure to hit that subscribe button on your YouTube channel for exclusive clips, webinars, workshops, and bonus materials. And if you're an Apple iTunes listener, we'd greatly appreciate a 5-star rating and review to help spread the word. On our YouTube page, you can also leave us feedback, comments, and suggest future guests that you'd like to hear from. For even more valuable insights and information on the call center world, visit nobelbiz.com and access our on-demand webinars. I'm Christian Montez, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of First Contact Podcast. Stay with us for the next exciting chapter.